picture Mina Suvari as a soldier, as in the girl from American Beauty.
Oh yeah, I know Mina Suvari.
As a soldier.
Like in the Nutcracker, like one of those
No,
kinds of.
like a military soldier who is with other military soldiers to try to ward off the zombie attack.
I think
It
I
just
feel like I just lost my brains listening to that.
well, we do have a film now to where Megan Fox plays a crack assassin. So, or a special ops soldier. I forgot the name of that, but you know. Uh,
You say Megan Fox crack assassin. I just think of her going around shooting butts. Which I would watch that movie for sure.
that'd be special bullets that go after the butts, kind of like the Runaway movie. Only when you shoot the bullet, instead of it going for the genetic makeup, it just goes for the nearest butt.
Heat seekers.
Heat seekers, yeah. And yes, here we are, folks.
Well, it's a good thing we're not live. Oh,
we are live. Yes. Welcome, folks, to the spoiler room. Thank you for venturing down the stairs, pulling up a chair with us, and joining us as we continue our journey down the thermometer with 52 degrees KB. Last week, we talked a Kevin Bacon film in the form of Death Sentence. And tonight, well, it's a certain sentence. I think. I don't know if it's a death sentence or what, but it's some kind of sentence. There are a lot of them in this film. And the film is called Balls of Fury, from the same year as Death Sentence, 2007. And there's a connection between Death Sentence and Balls of Fury. But before we get to that, let me tell you the crew member who has joined me, who has been with me on this wild ride in the boat down the great white river of films. It is none other than Ian Simmons. Hello, sir.
Hey, how you doing?
The white water rapids of cinema, I should
You're
say.
saying the White River. I'm like, what are you talking? Where are we going with this?
It's a river of milk. Don't ask. Just go with it.
See, it just made the image worse in my head.
I did just make it worse, didn't I? I did make the white water rapids of cinema. There we go.
Okay.
I'll get my words working eventually.
The celluloid stream. There you go.
Celluloid stream. So yes, the film is called Balls of Fury. Now let's see if we can get this synopsis right. So Balls of Fury is about a man named George who dies under mysterious circumstances. Little does he know that his voodoo priestess wife had put a curse on his testicles, and they have come alive for revenge as they go out seeking the people who are actually responsible for George's death in Balls of Fury. Oh wait, no, that's sorry, that's not it.
But I think that is the synopsis for the new Charles Band film.
Pick one, right?
You got to.
Just pick a Charles Band film. No. Balls. Okay, here it is. A man is a top CEO of a company, but he's an asshole. He's a rich asshole, very privileged. And unfortunately, he ticks off the wrong person. And after he dies of a heart attack, he is actually reincarnated as the testicles of a cat. And he is stuck as the testicles of a cat. And oh no, I'm sorry, that's Balls of Furry. That's Balls of Furry. Ian, would you like to give the synopsis of Balls of Fury from 2007?
I'm stuck on Balls of Fury because that would be the perfect afterlife for a guy like that, because the cats have the little sharp scrapey tongue, so when they go down to do the cleaning, that's a fate worse than death.
It is
Unfortunately, the synopsis for the actual Balls of Fury is far less entertaining, as is the movie, than the two synopses that you just proposed. It's a guy played by Dan Fogler who was the Olympic champion or would-be Olympic champion for ping pong in 1988 in Seoul, Korea. Flubbed it. His dad, played by Robert Patrick, had money on the game. The kid lost, was embarrassed because he came to on camera after getting knocked out saying, "I'm going to Disney World." Dad lost all of his money and ended up getting assassinated by the gangsters that he was in debt to. Flash forward 19 years because, comedy. And Dan Fogler, his character is named Randy Daytona. He is now washed up, kind of doing the, has-been circuit, gets recruited by the FBI to help bring down a mysterious gangster named Feng. And the only way to infiltrate his organization is to compete in a series of ping pong tournaments. Do I have to finish this synopsis, Mark?
Please. The listeners must know.
Daytona teams up with FBI agent played by George Lopez. So when you were giving that first synopsis talking about a guy named George who died, I thought you were talking about George Lopez's career when he signed on to do the actual Balls of Fury. But that's not what we're talking about here.
No.
So FBI agent recruits the guy, helps him get in with this master trainer who's got a hot daughter who for some reason falls for Daytona Charlie or Randy Daytona, whatever his name is. They infiltrate this compound. There's a tournament. It's life or death. The head bad guy, the head Chinese gangster, Christopher Walken. Now, I guess we should be grateful that we're not in I think we brought this up last week, a Breakfast at Tiffany's situation.
No, we are not in a Breakfast at Tiffany's situation. He by no means is not Walken playing an Asian gentleman. He's just Christopher Walken.
Although if you really wanted to get really punny and like on the borderline of offensive, you could refer to him as Christopher Walken.
Oh
yeah. But that's a joke that I think this movie should have made in the end credits, because you get the funny, like, I can't remember what the hell song they were playing at the end of this movie, but
there's a Def Leppard song, "You Pour Some Sugar on Me."
That's right, because Def Leppard is all over this movie, because Randy Daytona is a huge Def Leppard fan. So yeah, wackiness ensues. There's life and death ping pong. There are like ping pong paddles that are attached to bombs or electrocuting machines. There's shootouts. There's henchmen. I forgot that I had seen this movie. I think I might have even seen it in a theater in 2007. But sitting down to watch it today, I so thoroughly wiped it from my brain that when I pressed play, I was like, oh no. Oh no, that's what I'm in for. This is the next 90 minutes. And I think I laughed once.
Oh, this is going to be an interesting conversation.
You love this movie, don't you, Mark?
I didn't love it, but I found myself reluctantly entertained. My wife sat down with me as well, and she's like, I shouldn't find this film entertaining, but for some reason I am. And I feel guilty about the fact that I find this film entertaining. But there, because as you mentioned, we have a Chinese gang who all the members are Chinese, mind you, and you get some wonderful cast members in here. I mean, you've got Maggie Q's in here. You've got James Hong in here, who I love. James Hong, he's just hilarious. Whatever he's in, I love. I love him in it because he just goes all in. But my wife was like, I don't know how I feel, because you have Asian actors playing up Asian stereotypes for the comedy. She's like, so is this okay? Or because it's Asian performers doing the acting in these roles. So is that okay or not? 2020 lens, and what I deemed it as is, I'm like, well, if you look at the structure of the film as a whole, even though they're doing ping pong, if you substitute martial arts for ping pong, they're actually doing a parody of Asian martial arts films in a way. In a way, in at least the last half of it, when you get to the dueling part of it. I mean, we actually have Shang Tsung in here from Mortal Kombat. He's in here playing. The actor is his name escapes me. Hiroyuki Tagawa. Who plays Mysterious Asian Man is what he's credited as. It was great seeing him in here, and they allude for a while that he is possibly the mysterious Fang, but he's not. Christopher Walken is.
By the way, it's Fang.
Fang.
Did you stay through the whole credits?
Yeah, I did.
Because I think that might have been the one. It was maybe I laughed twice and it wasn't like a hearty laugh. It was like, but there was a scene where Dan Fogler and Christopher Walken, it's almost like an outtake where they're doing a showdown. And at one point, Walken just says, by the way, it's Fang, not Fang, it's Fang. And I get the feeling it's one of those things where Fogler, the actor, had been saying the name wrong during the entire shoot. And Walken was like, you're getting this wrong.
I mean, this is from 2007. The humor is definitely different, but for me, I found entertainment in it, especially when I looked at it as being the goofy parody. Don't get me wrong, some of the humor in here is definitely off, but some of it is fun. I mean, Maggie Q being a expert ping pong player, and when we first are introduced to her, she's just kicking the ass of these 5 guys playing ping pong, and then she does some martial arts, because if you're going to have Maggie Q in a film, you better have some martial arts in there for her to do some ass kicking, which she does.
And she's kind of one of the keys to why this movie doesn't work for me. And I want to step back to say this movie should have fired on all cylinders for me, because it was directed by Robert Ben Garant and co-written by him and Tom Lennon. And Tom Lennon shows up as the German champion that defeated the young kid in '88, and shows back up, for the championship in this movie, or 20 years later. They're very funny. They were on one of my all-time favorite comedy shows ever, The State, on MTV back in the '90s. Brilliant comedians and writers. They wrote a great book on screenwriting, and it was basically like how to sell like comedy scripts and make millions of dollars even if the scripts aren't any good. And I feel like this movie was probably the template for that film or that book. But with the Maggie Q character, and she plays her character's name is Maggie. She's introduced, as you say, as a very capable, can handle the boys. She's very tough. She complains to Daytona when he tries to kind of put the moves on her and fails. She's like, all I get day after day is just these assholes coming in here trying to show me their stuff and put the moves on me, and it's pathetic. Within 2 scenes, for some reason, she's fawning all over this, slob idiot, and then she disappears from the movie until the very end, when she's brought back in. And this would be culturally insensitive, I don't know the term for it, but it's like a traditional Chinese dress, I guess. I was gonna say it's a geisha costume, but that's not right at all. But she's brought in as the damsel in distress. She looks very much like Mary Jane in Spider-Man 2, when she's brought back in that Chinese dress, and she's just there to be rescued. And she kind of gets a couple of kick-ass moments, but she's not the character in the middle or the end of this movie that she was promised, that we were promised in the beginning. And as much as a lot of people complain about that type of thing in movies, and it's not that I overlook it, it's just that I don't see it as often, I think, as other people do. This really struck out to me as something that this is a missed opportunity. And maybe it's 2020, but I don't think I even appreciated this in 2007. It's just it's a dumb comedy, right? But you could have made a really cool, fun, smart movie if they hadn't been trying to parody so much in this thing.
Yeah, and that's they do parody a lot, and you can see it. And for me, the jokes work the best when they aren't trying to do the too much joke. It's the more subtle jokes. Like I said, I love all the stuff James Hong does because he, just him. I love the actor. I mean, no matter what role he's in, I usually love. And even in here, his delivery of the lines as this blind man who teaches ping pong, his total commitment to the comedy comes through, and it comes through so genuine. I can't help but just love his character because he's a very talented individual. My wife said in this, she's like, if Maggie is so talented, why didn't the FBI just hire her?
Because she's a girl.
It could be because she's a girl, and especially with it being 2007. I actually explained it away as, well, there's a history with James Hong's teacher and Fang, so he would know his daughter and therefore be recognizable, and she wouldn't get invited to the tournament because of the bad blood between Fang and the teacher, and that's why they didn't see. I justified it. It's not in the movie at all. That's just my creative mind restructuring some of the film.
Well, no, I mean, that kind of makes sense. I don't know when they would have known each other. And is she the daughter or the granddaughter? Because there's a huge
granddaughter. She's the granddaughter. Her dad died.
Right. She's got the memorial. Right.
Because he was a ping pong player, because she gave her father's ping pong paddle to Daytona to beat the dragon, who was this little 8-year-old girl that he played against in the underground ping pong world. Because apparently there's an underground ping pong world.
Yeah.
Where they bet money like $2 worth. Come on now, you gotta love some of the scenes. Like Jason Scott Lee in here was.
I was just gonna say, yeah. Now Jason Scott Lee, maybe I've seen him in other things. I'm not that familiar with him. I know a lot of people love him, but he really stuck out to me as one of the only good things about the live action Mulan that they released earlier this summer.
Oh, he's in that. Oh, okay.
He's I don't remember the character's name. He's the main bad guy from the animated film and the live action. But the way that they made him up, and I don't think they had to do a lot of work with him, he looks like the real life version of the animated villain, which is quite a feat.
Sure. Yeah.
That he's got such tremendous presence. I like him here doing some comedy, but he also gets kind of caught up in I'm sitting there watching this movie, kind of like what you were saying, wondering, the people who are the actors who are being asked to deliver these lines and play these parts a certain way, are they uncomfortable with this at all? Do they see some kind of a grand joke that I don't see? Because the other kind of uncomfortable fact of this is that, and I don't know, this shouldn't matter, but it kind of does, especially in today's conversations. This movie was written by two white guys, and it's very much immersed in stereotypes and playing around with stereotypes. Now, granted, they are stereotypes of Asian society and Asian characters that are being parodied for decades, of that being filtered through the kind of white Hollywood glossy lens. So maybe they're like meta incepting this kind of it's a parody of a parody of a parody, but I don't think it comes across because most of the movie is so dumb that I'm led to think maybe this isn't super smart. Maybe it's just ultra insensitive.
Yeah, see, and I think I know what they were trying to do, a parody of the parody. Like I said, when they show because they show a clip at two different points of actual martial arts TV clips of watching the TV, the fighting or whatever, and then you get to Fang's compound, because he's a bad guy, so he's got a compound, and you have the people training in the yard with the ping pongs. That's when I think, if you didn't get it before, I totally get where you're seeing with the insensitivity. Once you get there, you realize, oh, they're parodying the Asian portrayals that have been put in. But, I think it's trying to do that. But like you said, it's not quite as well written as, say, Blazing Saddles.
Right. You know, I mean, and Blazing Saddles has some rough parts to it, but like right from the get-go, what Mel Brooks is making fun of, and also what his point of view is. I don't, this very well could be just these two screenwriters who, this movie came out now the same year as Death Sentence, but also Michael Bay's Transformers. And we all know how sensitive he was to certain communities and Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. So it's entirely possible to think of this like, hey, it's fine. It's, this is the era of the man show. And, the Asian people are funny. We could do this. You can't do it. And if you're going to do it, you got to do it like damn well. And this is just not. It's just dumb.
Yeah. I mean, some of the racial humor doesn't land. It's weird because it's a mixture. There's some scenes in this where you have the portrayals and it's taken humorous but not over the top, of certain cultures, of Asians in particular, and then they go to some completely slapstick stereotype joke, and you're just like, wait, you had that moment. And now you have this moment, and that was a little bit, and having Christopher Walken as Fang, I know it's Christopher Walken, so I mean, and he at least is playing Christopher Walken, and I swear the direction of his character would have been, okay, Chris, just be you, dressed like Elton John, but just be you, because there is that joke that James Hong's character makes about him being a guy who dresses a lot like, gets his wardrobe from Elton John, which is true because every scene that Christopher Walken's in, he's in just this insane outfit.
He's got more outfits than Padme did in episode 1.
Well, and his hair is about the same.
That's true. Yeah.
As Padme.
But I mean, like this is something that would never fly today.
Well, no,
better or worse. I mean, I guess you could say that, maybe he is a mixed race character, which I'd buy if they even tried. I mean, I'm a mixed race person, and I just look like every other white person on the planet. But I don't think that it really works. They don't address it, which, maybe I should give them credit for, but it's also just so strange, and not strange in a meta humor like, oh my God, that's so audacious and crazy. It's like, no, seriously, what's going on here? It's distracting.
Yeah. Well, and let's face it, the concept is a parody of Mortal Kombat. Hence, I almost think that's why they got they got who they did to play Mysterious Asian Man. They got, Tagawa, because you get basically a guy collecting all the champions from around the world for a life or death match. I mean, this is pretty much the template for Mortal Kombat. You know, and go ahead.
No, I don't disagree with you, but also, I mean, Mortal Kombat came out in 95. This is 12 years later. Like,
well, but the games were around for a long time. But
sure, but I mean, like, if you're talking about a character who played a part 12 years earlier, I don't know that he was such a cultural staple that the people going to see Balls of Fury are necessarily the kind of crossover audience wise with the Mortal Kombat fans. There's gonna be like two people in the theater. Not that I love it when this happens, when I'm the guy in the theater who starts laughing uproariously at like some like well-planted in joke, but that doesn't necessarily feel like the case here. I could be totally wrong.
Yeah, well, and for me, I think I took it as it kind of was with the way the rest of the movie was, them casting him and the story, the way it plays out. I'm like, oh, they had to have. But again, it's also the Howard the Duck joke at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy. Even, that was their intention, but you're going to get most of your audience go, okay. And then you're just going to get those few, like you said, they're just like, oh, they casted, he's played, and that'd be me. I'd be like, this is awesome. I like him anyway, too. Especially in this, even though we don't get a whole lot of screen time. Robert Patrick showing up as Daytona's dad was a surprise because I didn't look at the cast list at all. I forgot he was in it because it's been years since I watched it.
Well, two things. One, I think it's when Feng meets James Hong or something, because they've been old rivals. The first line is, I think it might have even been Christopher Walken who delivered the line. He says, blast from the past. I immediately thought, wait a second, that's a Christopher Walken movie from a few years before this.
It was indeed, and I think that was intentional.
Yeah, I looked it up just to see if Grant and Lennon had been involved in that movie. I don't think they were, but I was like, I like that. In fact, I'd love to see a Christopher Walken role where all of his lines are just him like saying titles of his movies and working it into the conversation.
But nothing but Suicide Kings.
Yeah. We're entering a dead zone. No, I mean, because that would just be fun. But whatchamacallit? The Robert Patrick thing. Yeah. That is the one bit of, if you want to call it cleverness, I'll give it to you. But I was fully expecting, because he showed up in the very beginning as Randy's dad, that he wasn't really dead, and that he was going to show up like at the end, like right before the final tournament, and be like, I survived and go get him, son, or something like that. Yeah. I was wrong. But no, they committed to the bit. They killed him off, and that was it. And I was like, wow, how much did you pay Robert Patrick for like 10 minutes, if that?
Well, come on. I mean, Terminator 2 was what? 15 years prior or something like that. Not 15 years, like, yeah. But it's been a while. I mean, he got his claim to fame, but let's not forget that he was also one of the first guys to get shot by Bruce Willis in Die Hard 2. So, there is that, which that's a whole nother brain conspiracy I have of putting Die Hard 2 and Terminator 2 into the same world, but we won't. We won't talk about that right now.
We have to at some point, because that sounds amazing.
But Balls of Fury, I mean, I found humor in there, and I think what helped me as well was at the end doing the after credits that you just see everybody. It felt like everybody was having fun with this movie, and no one was who was involved in it was taking offense to what they were doing or that they weren't having fun. I think their intentions with this film were legitimate. They thought they were just making a goofy comedy and trying to poke fun at the stereotypes that have been portrayed in the past, because and then you get to the Fang's compound, and the movie like takes this complete turn, though. I mean, up until that point, it's about Daytona and getting his chops back, which they don't really do a great job of that. Like, he's been sucking in most montages, but then suddenly he defeats an 8-year-old girl, the dragon, and suddenly he's got his confidence back. I'm like, okay, way to go, dude. Now, granted, there's 8-year-olds that'll kick my ass in chess, so I get the feeling of accomplishment, but.
But I think if this had been a different kind of movie and a smarter one, there could have been some kind of a joke in there about, like, it really I fought all of these different people, but it really took knocking the shit out of an 8-year-old girl to give me my groove back. If he had delivered that line, it would have been sort of self-aware, but also this like charming asshole kind of line, and really kind of cruel, and I would have liked that. This movie is just kind of all over the place with the quote unquote jokes.
There was one character, but again, there's scenes in here that were great. Like, of course, Terry Crews shows up. I laughed out loud because Terry Crews makes me laugh. He is so funny, and he's just hilarious.
Yeah.
I'm like, he showed up. I laughed. He did the muscle chest twitch thing.
And then Fogler kind of tries to do it. I loved that when Terry Crews did that bit, you get, I don't know if this is if it was just where the mic was or if they added this in post, but you can hear the shirt ruffling as his pecs danced. That was a great touch. Yeah, I'm a big Terry Crews fan too, going back to White Chicks. That's how committed I am.
Wow.
But the movie, by the way. Let anyone be confused. But no, I like Terry Crews too, but he's sort of emblematic of one of the issues I have with this, which is the idea of the underground ping pong tournament is fine. I'll sum up my feelings on this movie thusly. This would have been perfect as a trailer in the Grindhouse film. Like a serious movie about an underground ping pong tournament with like world-ending stakes would have been great. And you could even lift some scenes from this movie to put that together. But once you say, oh, ping pong, it's this dangerous sport with people competing and all that stuff, you get one scene of that and it's kind of funny. You get 12 scenes of that and it's like, they're playing ping pong again. I also know that it's all like CGI balls going back and forth. So
what are you talking about? That's legitimate. They were all playing actual ping pong. How dare you, Ian, think that they CGI'd those?
I'm a cynic. I'm sorry. It was all real.
It was all real.
But when you have like sports movies, like we were talking about, like the Karate Kid and movies like that, and other martial arts films, especially from the 80s, you didn't have the advantage of CGI. So there was drama in, even if you kind of knew the beats of the story, like, okay, he's got to get defeated by these two people before he can come back and defeat this last guy to get into the semifinals and yada, yada, yada. Yeah. In this movie, because the conceit is it's all CGI, there's no drama because you're just waiting for the inevitable. And they don't really do anything with the comedy because it's not inherently funny to watch people just bounce CGI ping pong balls and be sweaty, especially if you see that scene replicated 5 or 6 times.
Oh, come on. No, just kidding.
No, I'm saying, like, I was tuned out. I was thinking about other things. I was thinking about the movie Dodgeball, which came out a few years before. I think is the much better version of this movie.
Again, we have to agree to disagree. I'm not a fan of Dodgeball, but
what the hell is wrong with you, Mark?
I know.
Next thing you know, you're going to say you still hate Freddy Got Fingered.
I do still hate Freddy Got Fingered. I mean, mad props to anyone who enjoys that film, but for me, it gave me a headache.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the good thing about it. It's a good pain. It's a good pain.
Yeah. No.
I get what you're saying with this, but I guess I had fun with the goofiness of it. Maybe it's the my brain, the way it works, but I like the fact that he's fighting a ping pong person who's a Siamese twin. I found that rather humorous.
Again, like that, I saw that, and yeah, it's cute and it's funny, but it's also just another Asian stereotype. Like, it's the Siamese twin, guys. Get it? When George Lopez, fine throughout 90% of the movie, until, because he's Latino of some stripe, we got to make him Tony Montana to do the Scarface climax, and then bring it back at a scene later. I'm like, I don't know if this was okay, or if everyone was just like, hey, it's real money from a Hollywood studio. I can swallow a bit of cultural pride and just be the dancing clown.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it seemed okay with everybody involved. So it's hard to say. I guess Thomas Lennon was expecting to play the role of Fang himself, which would have been even more weird. But yeah, I don't see it either. But I mean, I think they went into this with good intentions and not thinking possibly that deeply with it, or they were just having fun, because it does seem like everybody was having fun in this film. I mean, even get the guy who was the head bad guy thug, I think he was, in UHF, show up at the end. Just this random guy with the 2 girls that George Lopez's character, the FBI guy, takes out on the bridge before they're in the boat. I mean, but it looks like it felt like they were just having fun. I mean, I kind of dug the electro suit that would increase the electrical charge with each point the other guy would make, and how they were bouncing the ping pong throughout the whole battle. I found that humorous. I mean, I found a lot of goofy things with it. Personally, I think one of the better jokes in this, in all honesty, and even though, and when I say better, I mean it was a surprise, and I thought they kind of handled it okay, is when they got to the courtesans. When, that they spun the expectation. How they handled those characters, no, but how they spun the expectation, I thought was interesting. How they kept going forward with that joke, I was like, okay, guys, with them being guys instead of girls.
You see, the Cortisone thing was my brain was firing on all cylinders here because especially in the last few years, there's been a lot of talk about like human sex trafficking.
Well, yeah,
in the news, and so to watch something from 2007 where it's a joke, I'm like, I know human sex trafficking has been going on for a long time, but it wasn't in the consciousness the way it was back then. So maybe there was some thought that it could be funny, but because it's not even that they just say courtesans, they have to spell it out and say, wait, you got sex slaves here? Because that sounds kind of hot. Everyone loves hot Asian sexy ladies, and you got a team of them you can pick from. That's fine, whatever. And it turns out to be guys. And I like that Diedrich Bader was the main dude who kind of like got selected, and they just ended up playing Boggle all night.
Yeah.
Now, I thought they missed an opportunity. Not that I want to see anybody die, but the next morning when they're leaving and Daytona says, yeah, we just played Boggle all night. I thought for sure that Diedrich Bader was going to get a dart in the neck because they said if we don't sleep with you, they're going to kill us. So it's like you're not even committing to your own jokes.
That's true. And we did forget to mention, and she is our connection to our previous film, Death Sentence. A character who I would have loved to see a movie just about her, Aisha Taylor, playing the character named Mahogany.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with this movie at all.
Okay, I didn't say there was nothing wrong with the whole movie. Okay, you're putting words in my mouth.
I'm not saying. I'm just saying, like, we've been kind of on the fence, like, well, maybe.
No, the humor in here is definitely wrong and off-putting. It's weird. It's unusual because of the performers in that who they have involved in it seem to be all in and committed to it. So it shorts your brain out going, how do you take this? I mean, how do you take this? Is it just a perspective thing to where this joke isn't offensive to those being portrayed in the film, and we find it offensive or think it should be offensive, but it's being handled differently just because of the perspective. So I mean, there is some of that. Okay.
Yeah.
I loved her character though. I mean, I like her as an actress. I liked her in Death Sentence, and in here she's badass in here. She's the reason why people die in the ping pong game, because once they lose, she's the one that throws the dart at people and causes them to die. Which until they say it, they never at first establish if those people are actually dead or just paralyzed. At first I thought maybe they were paralyzed until they said to the death, and then you're like, oh, okay, that person's dead, because the way they play the dart getting shot into the neck, it's almost as if they're just paralyzed,
Yeah.
So and George Lopez, 90% of the film, he was fine. James Hong as Wong was fine. And it's funny because some of the humor in here, we just talked about Freddy Got Fingered, and you have some of the similar spirit of humor in Freddy Got Fingered as in here, yet it doesn't land for you.
Well, I mean, right, because Freddy Got Fingered's humor is base in a way that this movie's humor is base, but it's also so absurd that it's not obvious. Mm-hmm. When they've got the tracking device that looks like, it's a little black cylinder that needs to be smuggled in somehow.
The old-fashioned way.
The old-fashioned way. Everyone knows what that means, but then you get this extended sequence of Dan Fogler walking because he's got this thing up his butt, this big black cylinder up his butt. Guys, get it, for 5 minutes. I'm like, but I think part of it is compounded by the fact that that's also the scene where, for whatever reason, Maggie is all over him. I'm like, see, two of these things don't work.
And again, not everything worked for me in this film, but I did find a lot of entertainment and goofy haha in it. that was the one thing that got me, was suddenly she has the thing for his character, and like 2 scenes before then, she's the one talking about table jockeys coming at her and putting the moves on her. And that was the one thing with her character that didn't land with me, was the last half, as you mentioned before, you said as well. It suddenly, they kind of pull what they did with, and I hate to bring it up again, but it's true with Mortal Kombat and the Sonya character. The Sonya character in the first Mortal Kombat, which I still think is one of the best video game movies ever out, and you can debate me with it, that's fine. But the original Mortal Kombat, Sonya kicked ass for like 90% of the movie, and then she became the damsel in distress. You know, she became the one kidnapped by Shang Tsung, and suddenly she forgets how to fight, and she's in some, 1 million BC outfit. So I mean, and this one does fall similar. Now, Maggie Q's character does later on in the film get that fun scene where she takes on a very large gentleman and kicks and beats the shit out of him, and he falls over. And I loved that gimmick. I thought
that was fun.
Was fun as well. And yeah, there's a lot of moments and fun stuff in the gimmicks in here. I mean, I honestly chuckled when in early on, when Daytona's at the Vegas show and he's doing, the ping pong stuff, and nobody's really impressed. And then he starts bouncing the ball off the guy, who ends up having a heart attack, but he's bouncing the ball off the guy. That made me laugh. I'm like, oh, I didn't quite expect that,
Yeah, and there's, David Koechner shows up in that scene as like the manager of that pathetic Reno variety show. That's kind of fun stuff. Dan Fogler, I didn't like him in this movie, but I do like him in other things I've seen. He was in a film called Take Me Home Tonight from a few years after this.
Oh, I think. Yeah.
Did you ever see that movie?
No, that was the 80s. That was the 80s film, though, the throwback 80s, where they were trying to go to a concert, wasn't it? Something, I forgot what it was.
I don't think it was a concert. I think it was
a party,
something. Yeah, and it was like Topher Grace. And Dan Fogler is like the best friend, and I think he works really well as a sidekick character. He might work as a leading man, but I think he just needs material that's stronger than this. Because I like him. I just didn't like him in this role, because it's like I see him. Like the first time I see him on screen, I know exactly what he's going to be in the rest of the film. There's no surprises.
Well, what got me with his character too, though, is you see how he was doing, and I know it's a difference between tricks and competing or whatever, but you get the scene where, the very beginning, where he's doing all the fancy ping pong stuff, and yet then he gets to trying to prove himself and he fails miserably. And I'm like, that was the part that kind of got thrown off for me. I know competing's different than the tricks, but if he's that talented, he didn't lose that much to where his reactions were that off, to where he goes to the ping pong championship and pancake dinner and loses to Pat Oswalt, who was hilarious.
Oh God, Pat Oswalt.
Oh my God, he was hilarious. I'm watching it, and all of a sudden, Jill, my wife, was like, "Is that Oswalt?" I'm like, "Holy crap, that is Oswalt."
Looking just really skeevy and gross, man. I don't know what they did.
Gross, but still hilarious. I mean, and there are a lot of moments in this film, that I kind of put my 2020 brain aside a little bit and just realized it was this ridiculous comedy, and I found a lot of bits and characters that I really enjoyed. If you look at it as the whole project, they could have approached it a bit differently and had, like you said, probably a smarter comedy than what they had here, which the film, I think, even had trouble landing, though it did make its money back in 2007. So
what was the box office on this thing?
23 million, was it?
Okay.
I don't know, it's 32. Opening weekend it made 11 mil, gross 32 mil. Worldwide it made 41 mil. So it didn't hit too well overseas. But I don't think they marketed it this well overseas. And I'm sure it didn't hit in Asia too well.
Why wouldn't it? Um, no, it's it's a puzzlement because I like the look of the movie. I kind of like the idea of it, although, like I said, unless you've got a really sharp script, it's just it's a mock trailer at best. And I do like the cast. I think, Maggie Q. I loved her in was it Mission Impossible 3? I think.
Yeah, I think she
And
was.
she's
Yeah.
good here. She's not only beautiful, but she's got a great physicality to her and just kind of a presence that I think is utterly wasted. Like when she comes back in that third act, I was like, oh shit, that's right. She's been gone for most of the movie. I've been stuck with these, CGI ping pong assholes.
Well, it like I said, they gave her a fight scene, and I was hoping for a little more fight scenes with her because, again, she is just very talented and she kicks some ass too. So it would have been fun to see her and Aisha Taylor go mano a mano fight there in 2000. They would have, not that they would have this humor, but if you had those two characters now, I honestly think you would have a fight between Maggie Q and Aisha Tyler. Now they would work it into the script somehow that those two would fight.
Well, I mean, if it was shot now, they would be the main characters.
Yeah, they would actually. Maggie Q would have been the one that actually you'd have Daytona be her sidekick. He'd be the one along, trying to do the secret agent stuff while she just played, ping pong when she could actually kick at. Yeah, they could have. It would have been spun definitely different.
You see, and that's, I think, the key to this movie. I talk about that mock trailer.
Yeah,
I said earlier it would have worked if you'd taken scenes from this movie and put in there. I want to reverse that. Like, if you had made a movie, I think that the most effective way to parody a lot of these kind of martial arts movies from the 80s, because a lot of them were pretty good. I mean, there's a reason Karate Kid was a global phenomenon that spun off 3 sequels and everyone references it to this day. There's a new spin-off show. It's because as 80s as it was still a damn fine film. If you want to make fun of something like that, or the movies that kind of came after it, what you do is you make a completely serious movie, except it's about ping pong, and that's the joke. Like, you don't even need in jokes and references to other things. Like, I would like to see Maggie Q in like a serious drama where she's got to infiltrate this underworld and everything, and then she has to pick up her paddle and fight to the death.
kind of a Shaolin soccer kung fu hustle approach.
Yes, very much
where it you deal with ping pong, but everything else is handled a lot better. And those films do it right. I love all those films.
Those are two of my favorite comedies, are those films.
Oh,
and they are, they do have their moments of being kind of goofy and there's some slapstick in them, but they're kind of like ancillary moments like you'd see in any other film. I mean, plus Kung Fu Hustle is so weird that I didn't like it the first time I saw it because I was so off put by the weird violence of that opening where the gangsters are slaughtering each other and then they start dancing. I'm like, why is this funny? But I eventually got into it. But yeah, that's the key. That's the key to let's remake Balls of Fury. It's been 13 years.
Sure. We'll get that crew to do Balls of Fury, because that's an example of them making fun of stereotypes, because they do in that film, but they do it in a smarter way in both Shaolin Soccer and Kung Fu Hustle. I think they do it in a smarter way. And it's like you said, maybe it's because they spin it a little bit more serious to where you still have the goofiness, but it's just the context and the whole package they put it under. It's not quite too SNL skit.
Well, honestly, and this is something we've been touching on this last, this conversation. Those movies were made by Stephen Chow, and they are very much Asian productions. It's not, it is critiquing the movies and the culture from the point of view of the movies and culture that kind of created them, popularized them, instead of this Americanized version where you're like, I know you're probably a fan of these movies, but I don't know if you're qualified to kind of make these jokes or this critique in this way. without you, because Lennon and Garant, as much as I love their other work, they're not Mel Brooks.
No, no, they are not Mel Brooks. That's another film. There you go. That actually was completely goofy, but it was Mel Brooks, and yeah, he. Folks, pay attention to that film. Those of you who complain about Blazing Saddles being what it is, it's like, look at who's actually being made fun of in that film.
Yeah, I've heard there are people who have problems with Blazing Saddles, and that's just a symptom of the age that we're living in. I mean, that you can't watch Blazing Saddles if your brain is at all switched on and come away thinking that it is a racist movie.
No, it's. I mean, you look at it, I'm like, who's the smartest character actually in there? Who's the other smart character? I mean, who's actually being portrayed as the dumb yokels? It's like, if you pay attention to what's going on, and Balls of Fury almost could have been something like that as well in the hands of better writers, I think, in more, they're tried. I think that's what, and I guess maybe that's where I found some of the entertainment is I could see what they were trying for. And there were spots where they really hit it, and then a lot of the spots where they didn't, to where you're kind of cringing and you're going, or they sped through the plot where suddenly, oh, now she's got a thing for him when she didn't, not 2 minutes prior, suddenly he's the best around, doing whatever you can, suddenly he's that guy, and it's like not even 2 weeks that he's had to prepare. So, and I know movie stuff and it's a comedy, don't think that deep, but there's a lot of potential here. I still found a lot of entertainment in it, especially when I turned some of my brain off. But there were parts too that still made me cringe and just went, okay, it's gone now. Okay. that scene has gone by now. We're okay now,
for as much of a hard time as I'm giving this movie, because I really don't like Balls of Fury. I wasn't entertained by it, but I can't say that it wasn't. I didn't turn my brain off. There were times that I kind of checked out, like, oh, it's another ping pong montage. But I was constantly thinking about what I was watching and, looking for moments to laugh and enjoy it. But I was engaged throughout the entire thing because I was thinking about like what this movie is and what it represents and what was the intention and all this other stuff, things I'll never really know. So I was entertained in that way. Here's a quick question. Speaking of Blazing Saddles, are you watching The Mandalorian?
Not the second season yet, no. So I usually wait till the episodes are all on and then I binge them. So it's been tough though.
Yeah, no spoilers, but I will say after you watch it, put a pin in this, just this thought. Episode 2, let's talk about this later. Is there anything in that plot? Sorry, episode 1, the first, it's called The Marshal. Of the new season.
2? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there anything in there that reminds you of Blazing Saddles? Just put that question away for when you watch it, and we'll talk about it.
I'll keep that. I'll file that away. Yes.
Not in terms of a joke, but in terms of if Favreau and Filoni were thinking about Blazing Saddles and they wanted to incorporate it in a serious way into The Mandalorian. That would be like one of the most genius moves in history, because I picked up on it, but I also might be crazy.
I mean, and I like I said, I can totally see where it would miss. I mean, there are fun stuff. And for me, this is fun stuff. I think the restaurant that Wong has his school above is the same place they shot Birds of Prey. I think that's the same apartment place that
I thought it looked familiar.
That Harley Quinn. I honestly think, I didn't look it up, but I'm gonna go back and watch Birds of Prey because I really enjoy that movie. I know many people don't. I like it. I want to go back and see because I swear that's the same place, that outside shot. I'm like, why does that place look familiar? just the way it's built.
I hate Birds of Prey, but I would be willing to boost it up a notch in my rating if you go back and watch it and report back that there's actually like a little ping pong ball classes here sign in the window.
I'll take a look. I'll watch it again. I have no problems with that whatsoever. I mean, there are some fun little gimmicks in here too. Again, that worked for me. Wong, when Daytona first shows up and we see Maggie Q kicking ass, both ping pong and then martial arts style. Did you know? My wife noticed quite a bit. She's like, "How many noodles are in that bowl?" Because he's constantly eating the noodles out of the bowl and they never go away. He just is continually eating noodles.
I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah, I at first either. Then I'm watching him going, holy crap, you're right. He's just continually eating, so there you have it, folks. I think we'll wrap it up for the night. Sorry you didn't enjoy it, Ian.
I enjoyed it, just not in the way that I had intended to. So that's gotta count for something.
And I found some humor in the goofiness, but it's got issues, especially in 2020. That stuff that just doesn't land, and their intentions may be good, but I could see this getting so flamed on the Twitterverse nowadays and on the internet and people protesting it and all kinds of things if they cared for the film, though. That's the thing too.
That's the caveat right there. I don't think this inspires much passion in anybody.
Yeah. Aisha Tyler was in Death Sentence. She's in this one. That's our 52 Degrees connection. I liked her in it. And there's a lot of elements in here to enjoy. You just got to try to look past the not so great elements, because remember, it's better to die like a tiger than live like a pussy.
That was the line that I laughed at.
that made me bust out laughing. I'm like,
and the sad thing is, it's because I could see that being the message in the world's most awesome fortune cookie. I would love to crack it open and just see that.
That's one of those where you would frame that fortune, right there. You put that in a little frame on your desk. It was at least lighter than the last film we watched. So
that's true, but I liked Aisha Tyler more in that movie than I liked her in here, because it gave her a chance to really.
She didn't do a lot except kill people with a blow dart in this,
right? And she is so much more than that, as we saw in Death Sentence.
Yeah, definitely. No, I agree. She definitely enjoyed her role more in Death Sentence than in here. But yeah, so there you go, folks. Comedies. I always say that horror can scare you with jump scares, and sci-fi entertain you, but comedies are probably some of the hardest genres, I think, to do, especially for a full feature film, because people's tastes in humor vary so much that it's hard to find that formula every time, that'll hit. But then you get the you get early Zucker brothers. I don't know what magic they did with what script, but those early Zucker brother films, I know people who watch it and everyone laughs. Airplane, everyone laughs at some of those early films. The Mel Brooks, Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles, people who watch that, they just laugh their ass off. If you watch Clue, I mean, it can be done. Jokes can be done and comedies can be done. That'll be appealing to a lot of people, but more often than not, especially, and I'll get your final thought too with, comedies, and especially comedies like Balls of Fury. When you get to films like Balls of Fury, I think it's a harder sell to hit a wider audience because of the way you structure your jokes and your humor in the film. It's a lot harder with a film like this than, say, Airplane, which pretty much takes an entire bucket of jokes and puns and parodies and just throws the bucket at your face. And you're going to laugh at something.
Well, yeah, I think part of it is that Airplane and those other movies you mentioned, Mel Brooks, they came first.
Right.
They were the early adopters of that style of humor, and they were so influential that we've had decades of people trying to be the next Airplane or trying to incorporate that humor. And it just does take the deft touch of the people who originated it. Because there are a couple of Airplane moments in this movie, like when falls down the elevator shaft. That's straight up out of Airplane.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But in fact, I had this weird sense of deja vu, like I had seen that in another, in an Airplane movie. But yeah, it's just, not to say that you can't try. It's just that if you're going to, it's kind of like trying to remake Citizen Kane. Like, you really had better have something new to bring to the table. Otherwise, just come up with a better Transformers movie.
Well, you can eventually you throw enough things to the wall, they might stick. You make enough not another movie. You make enough of those, you might hit comedic gold again, though they didn't. They tried to be Zuckers and they just got progressively worse. This is better than
theater.
This is better than those, but again, 2020 eyes, you're going to have problems with some of the portrayals, I think, in here. And I think for me, what helped is just the end scene, the end montage during the credits, where it seemed like everybody was actually having fun legitimately, except Walken, who's like, give me my paycheck. Get me out of here. He's like, why are you making me sing? I don't sing.
This movie's not going to bring in those Batman returns. Sorry.
Oh, and on that note, we are now going to give my wonderful crew member his license to shill. Yes. So, Ian, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. I'm Ian Simmons, as you can see on your screen. I'm the proprietor of Kicking the Seat, which you can find at kickseat.com. I put out a podcast 2 to 3 times a week, and I also do YouTube content, so you can find me on YouTube. We're talking a bit about The Mandalorian. I've been doing live Mandalorian recap shows, 8:30 p.m. Central on Sundays, so it gives you a chance to catch up with the latest chapters, or in Mark's case, not. But if you want to come join us on Sunday and hang out, it's a fun time. And we do get spoilery, so if you don't watch The Mandalorian, don't tune into the live streams, because we ruin everything, but with jokes. So yeah, that's my spiel.
Well, appreciate that. And we thank Astro Radio Z tonight, which, if you haven't caught that podcast, you should. And his Patreon, Mr. Derek Carey, puts out some wonderful content, hilarious stuff, and just really great stuff. And we are so very honored that he did sit and listen to us discuss Balls of Fury. And he asks us a question. Ian, are you ready?
I'm scared.
So, are we both going to buy the $80 steelbook of Balls of Fury? Oh, it's worth it for that look. It was so worth
$80 steelbook.
$80, really? No.
Unless Maggie Q delivers it to my house. No, not a chance.
Maggie Q's got it. I don't know if you're well, I don't know if your wife would approve of that, but
she would, because she'd be like, if you're going to spend $80, Maggie Q better come to our house.
If you're going to spend $80, she better deliver it to the house.
For the record, not that I would do anything with Maggie Q, because I'm a happily married man, but it would just be worth it for her to bring me a steelbook Blu-ray of Balls of Fury. It's like, oh my God, it's Maggie Q. I'm like, yep. And then she drives off in the FedEx truck.
Yeah, she drives off in the FedEx truck. I didn't mean to get you in trouble there, Ian. But
never. Hey, Derek.
He says that's the gauge of a good movie. Are you willing to pay for the $80 steelbook or not? If not, then it's just okay. There's a lot of legitimacy in that statement, sir. I will definitely agree with that. That if you're willing to pay $80 for the steelbook, it better be a good movie.
I would pay $80,000 for the steelbook of Freddy Got Fingered. So there you go.
I wouldn't pay 8 cents for the steelbook of Freddy Got Fingered. I would melt down the steelbook of Freddy Got Fingered into like a medallion that I would then throw into the deepest part of the ocean. And then
please say you document this, because I'd love to watch that.
we'll do a YouTube we'll do a YouTube video of it. It'll be, I'll say it's the unboxing of the Steelbook of Balls of Fury, but it'll actually be me melting it down with a freaking blowtorch and a pan.
For Christmas, Mark, I'm gonna make you a customized Steelbook of Freddy Got.
Well, if it came from you, okay, I'd put it somewhere. I would never watch the movie, but if you made that, I would put it on my shelf. So
Well,
there is that. You're welcome, because that is something. It'd be more entertaining. He said put it in a Balls of Fury case.
There you go.
There you go. Be like that you go to Family Video and you rent that video and you're like, all right, you get it home and it's a completely wrong movie. God damn. Or Netflix. Back in the day when Netflix, isn't it bad when you say Netflix would rent out discs? You go, back in the day when they actually sent you physical discs, you'd occasionally get that one where you'd get an envelope and you're like, okay. And then you take the disc out and you're going, that's not the movie.
And then you got to wait like 2 more days, send it back and all this other stuff. Yeah, it's amazing that this is only 20 years ago or less. In some cases, it feels like it's 50 years ago.
Yeah, and whoever wrote up the movie summaries on the envelopes for Netflix, that person did not give a flying leap about anything being accurate, because those things were never accurate. I did not only get Freddy Got Fingered from Netflix. I did not. Damn it. Derek, you're tearing me apart.
God, I can't. I think I saw Freddy Got Fingered in the theater like 2 or 3 times. That's my movie.
Mad props to you, man. Mad props to you.
There's madness in there for sure.
There is. And but yeah, I think we're gonna end it now for the evening. Oh, hi, Mark. Thank you. Yeah, I set myself up for that by doing a Tommy Wiseau reference. So of course it naturally follows with a oh hi, Mark.
And we're ending on a high mark. I think. Yeah.
Yes, we're ending on something, folks. So there you have it. Yes, we were live tonight. Thank you, Astro Radio Z. Thank you to all our listeners out there. And next week, we've got another fun one. Yes, we are playing a weird version of 52 Degrees KB. And what is our film next week? Well, our film next week is going to be, prepare yourself, Terminator Salvation. Yes. And how is Terminator Salvation connected to Balls of Fury? Well, tune in next week, folks, live on the Twitch channel, twitch.com/Special Mark Productions, or later on, you can follow us on all podcast streaming venues. So thank you, folks. And I will just say a good night, everyone.
Good night.
And thank you, Astro Radio Z. Go check out their podcasts. Woo! Now I'm done.